Hey everybody, today's lesson is in our core book, Module 2, which is Introduction to Construction Math. And this session is session 3 in the syllabus. It covers units and measure and some geometry. During our lesson, you'll need to have some things on hand. You need some paper. You probably need a couple sheets of scratch paper, and it wouldn't hurt to have a couple more sheets on hand just in case you like to write big. You need a pencil, calculator. We'll be ready to go. Alright, our objectives for today: at the conclusion of this lesson, you will be able to utilize units of measure, demonstrate the ability to calculate the area of a two-dimensional shape, and demonstrate the ability to calculate the volume of three-dimensional shapes. You'll be able to convert fraction to decimals and convert inches and decimals both ways. Alright, in this lesson we'll start off today talking about units of measure. This whole lesson is divided up into 5 sections that we'll just see how time plays out to see how many different parts we'll have in this lesson. First one is units of measure. There are many types of measurements. What are some examples of what different types of measurements can show us? Alright, so different types of measurements can show us how hot something is, how long something is as far as time, how far, distance, how much, how fast, how heavy, and the list goes on. I mean, it's just a lot of different types of measurements. What are some examples of how we measure things? You got types of measurements, but we have different ways to measure them. How far? That measures distance. What's some ways that we measure with a measuring tape? How about how hot? You could use a thermometer, right? How long? Watch, clock. How much? Might be, if you look at the little pictures we got here, the icons, a measuring cup. How fast? How do you measure speed? How fast? It's always distance and time put together. Miles per hour, feet per second, whatever it is. And then how heavy? You can use what? Scales, different type of scale. Okay. All right. We need different types of measurements to do it. All right, so we have different things we measure. We have different kind of ways to measure them, and then we have the units, which is the language of the measurement. As far as how about temperature? How hot something is. How do we measure that? What type of units do we use? I don't like for us to get caught up in the terms as far as like words on a board that you got to memorize the definition. I want you to relate to it in everyday life. Most of the time you find out you already know about this, but you ain't connecting with the lesson. So we want to make sure we connect with everything, and a lot of this is common sense that you already know. So we're going to connect, we're going to go through it, we're going to cover it good enough to where, that's why I'm backing up, trying to get you into the lesson by realizing you already know about this kind of stuff. Alright, so what do we need? Different types of units. Why do we need different types of units? Different size units. Alright, so what are some? We go back to the thermometer here. Go back to the thermometer. What types of units do we use? we use degrees, and we got two different systems. We use Fahrenheit and Celsius, and you can relate to it. If I said it's 30 degrees outside, you got a relationship to it. You got the concept. It's cold and it's below freezing. All right, how long? Well, some units: seconds, minutes, hours, days, years, centuries, millennium. All right, so all those are units of time. All right, how far? We could think of a lot of different units: inches, feet, that type of thing. Or you can measure miles, for farther distance. Okay, how much? Pints, quarts, gallons, that type of thing. How fast? We talked about that. Miles per hour, feet per second. How heavy? Pounds, ounces. What else? Tons. We have different systems of measurement. Just like we talked about temperature. We got Fahrenheit, we got Celsius. What do we use? Fahrenheit. Why? Because we can relate to it. All right, but there's different systems of measurement. What is the most popular system in the world of measurement? Used worldwide. It's the metric system. We might be a little familiar with the metric system. What are some metric system units? All right, we got the meter, centimeter, millimeter, kilometer. All these are metric units that measure distance. What do we typically use? What system? We don't use the metric system much. About the only time we use the metric system is in class when we're doing Unit 2. We use the U.S. customary system. It comes from the English imperial system, but we customized it for the United States. So it's a lot like the imperial system, but a little different. What are some units that we use to measure length? We use inches, we use feet, yards, fractions. If we want to go farther, we might use a mile. So we need to know when we're measuring, we need to know how these units are related. And we've already talked about some of that. How the units are related to different types of measures, different types of measurements, different sizes, and it's a lot of different ways we relate them. When you look at this picture, all right, it says, what units do we use most often to measure distance or length? When you look at this picture, what you think of? I think a road trip, a long distance from one place to the other. So I'm thinking miles. All right, when I look at this picture, what do you think about? What unit to measure? Think about yards. What units do we think about here? If you're familiar with baseball, they don't use yards. Everything's about feet. Like, how far is it? Get my laser out. How far is it from the pitcher's mound to home plate? Does anybody know? 60 feet. How far is it between the bases? Same distance all the way. It's 90 feet. And how far is it from home plate to hit a home run at the fence? How far is it? You know? If you know baseball, you know. There's no set measurement. Every field's different. Anyway, I'll think of feet. Now you're measuring the TV. How big is it? How do you measure it? All right, here kind of measurement we're having to use here. So we measure down, probably putting a hinge on a cabinet. Here's 4 inches. Here's 5 inches. But the measurement is in between. So we can't use 4 or 5. We have to find something in between those 2 inches, which is called what? A fraction. Alright, that's where our fractions come in. Alright, so right now we're going to do a little class activity, estimating the length or distance, and I want you to round to the nearest whole unit. And we're not going to take much time on this. We have, I think it's about 7 or 8 questions, I forget. But I'm only going to give you a few seconds for each one. There's no, whole lot of thinking going on. It's more, think of it, write it down. Just come up with something. All right, let's get started. How far is it from Columbia to Myrtle Beach? Give you about 5 or 6 seconds. So write something down. Next question. What is the record for the longest field goal? Don't need thinking much. Either you know it or you don't. So write something down. How high is an official basketball goal? Most of you probably know that. How tall is the average door? I mean, you can probably look around where you're sitting and see a door. So how high would you say? Just rounding off, how tall do you think that door is? Write it down. We'll find out what you know. All right, how long is a new pencil? Think about a pencil. A new one. Don't think about, you use some of our pencil sharpeners, you can put a new one in and it won't be about 3 inches long by the time you get a point on it. All right, but how long is a new pencil? Write it down. All right. What is the circumference of Dwayne Johnson's biceps? Who's Dwayne Johnson? That's Rock. Rock. You can smell what the Rock's cooking. What's the circumference? How big around it is? How big do you think it is? Write it down. All right, number 7. How tall is a stack of quarters? If you had quarters, 25 cents, and you stack them on top of each other, you stack 6 of them. Where are we at? About 6 of them. How tall do you think that is? Write something down. I'm just trying to pick you to see what you know, how good you are. Alright, let's start right here with Columbia to Myrtle Beach. It's 152 miles. Alright, what's the record longest field goal? Well, that will be 64 yards. I can't remember who did. Basketball goal. How tall is it? 10 feet. How tall is the average door? I'm going to say 7 feet. Be closer. How long is a new pencil? It's about 7 inches. What's the circumference of Dwayne Johnson's biceps? It's 23 inches. That's as big as some women's waist. They might have told, I don't know. All right, how tall is a stack of quarters? Who said it? How tall is it? What'd you write down? I said about a ½ inch. See, I said about. That means, give or take a little bit. So I'm going to say about a ½ inch. Did anybody pass this test? Did anybody make 100 on this test? Well, let's go back and get a little more into it. With your answer, did you write miles? Did you write yards? Did you write feet? How tall the average door is? Did you say feet? How long is a new pencil? Did you have inches? Dwayne Johnson biceps, did you put inches? You could almost put feet, but we want to round it off. All right, how tall is a stack quarter? I said a ½ inch. The main thing is, did you write a fraction? If you see with this little class activity, the numbers were irrelevant. That didn't matter. What we're relating to is units of measure, different size units of measure, why you have them, and how you use them. So if you wrote miles, it don't matter whether it said 64 yards or 52 yards, whatever. The main thing is yards. Did you write feet? For pencil, did you write inches? For biceps, inches. And then for the last one, did you write some type of fraction? If you did, you made 100 on the test. How about that? We need different types of units. We need different size units. We discussed that. And the reason we need different size units is they can make measuring easier. They can make it more accurate and more relatable. We're gonna, different size unit, we can relate to it more. Example: if I said I drove somewhere today and I averaged about 316,800 feet per hour. I mean, you can't relate to it. But if I said I average about 60 miles an hour, you know what I'm talking about. My son likes to watch Formula One racing. It's over Europe mostly, and I never know how fast they're going because they always use, he went down the back stretch at 292 kilometers per hour. Well, I ain't got a clue how fast he's going. If they don't say miles per hour, I don't know. Anyway, that's why we got to learn to relate to things. Units of measure in our system, we're going to focus on inches, feet, yards, and fractions. That's what we tuning it into. We're going to keep the units a small number so we can learn more about the process. All right, here we're going to talk about we see inches. This is an inch from here to here. All right, that's a standard 12-inch ruler, and that's 1 inch. All right. Now we see feet. How many inches are in a foot? 12 inches in a foot. So you got an inch. It's 12 inches in a foot. You got yards. How many feet are in a yard? That's 1, 2, 3 feet. So it's 3 feet in 1 yard. Next is fractions. What's a fraction? An example would be a fraction is like making change. Say you go to the store and you buy your pack of chewing gum. It says 25 cents. Must be like 1 stick in it. Anyway, you pay for it with $1. Alright, so transaction complete. No, it's not complete. What are you expecting? 25 cents for the bag of gum and you give a man $1. You want some change back, right? Alright, so you expect 3/4 back, which is same thing as 3/4 of a dollar, 3/4. So I mean, that's fractions. If you know how to make change for money, you know how fractions work. Same thing. All right. These are fractions. You got 0 to 1 inch, 1 inch to 2 inches. Those are whole inches, right? Well, in between those inches are fractions. And what are the fractions for? Well, if I need to measure something and it's in between 1 inch and 2 inches, I gotta have a fraction. I gotta have an accurate unit of measure. I don't just say if I'm taking a measurement and you on a saw over there to cut it and it's in between 4 and 5 inches. I don't say, well, just cut it in between 4 and 5 inches there somewhere. It's just not gonna work very good. You gotta have fractions. Alright, we want to take a minute to cover some math. We'll take a minute for math. We want to learn how to cross multiply. This is a formula or process that set up like this, and you take information in a problem and you sort the information out and put it in the right place, and it'll make it where you can solve the problem very easily. It'll really help you out. Alright, so we take the information we know. Alright, and when you cross multiply it, this is equal to this. But in a problem, there's always going to be one data point that's left out, and that's the question. That's why it's a problem. So what we do is, alright, we got our setup, and we're going to take what we know in a problem, and then we're going to take what we don't know, the question, and use it to fill in our data, or the information we got. So you always take what you know, like how many of something, and then it equals how much of something. The thing is, always put a label. Like if you got numbers in a problem, put a number here, label it. This might be feet, this might be inches. It might be saying how this many inches equals this many feet. Alright, so you want to make sure you pair up your information in sets, like how many, how much. We'll get into it a little bit more, but that's the main thing you got to learn how to do. Is you take that setup and you learn how to input your information that you got in that problem, and it makes a problem so easy to solve. You'll get to where you just want to have problems to solve. It's just amazing. Alright, so here, let's take this problem. If 6 feet equals 2 yards, then 24 feet equals how many yards? Well, we take our setup for our problem. First thing is, what do we know already? We know 6 feet equals 2 yards. So we want to put that information in. We know 6 feet equals 2 yards. Alright, but what's our question? Alright, our question, or what we want to know, is how many yards is 24 feet? Alright, so where are we going to put the 24? Feet. So we're going to put 24 right here. Pair it up with this feet. Then what we don't know is yards. How many yards? Okay? It's so easy. Alright, so we take it 24 times 2, because we cross multiplying. 24 times 2 equals 48. Then what do? We're going to divide by what? By this number, 6. Cross multiply, and then we divide. So 24 times 2 is 48, divided by 6 is 8 yards. I mean, it's like it just fixes itself. All right, let's work this next problem. How many nails will it take to install 10 sheets of plywood if it takes 40 nails per sheet? All right, here's our setup. The question is what? How many nails? Boom, right there. Will it take to install 10 sheets of plywood? So that's going here. So here's the question. How many nails for 10 sheets of plywood? And this is what we know. It takes 40 nails a sheet. So we're going to say 40 nails. We got our nails in line, and we got our sheets in line. 40 nails per sheet. Then what do? You take 40 times 10, cross multiply. 40 times 10 equals 400. Then we divide. Well, we can't divide here because there's no information. That's what we're trying to figure out. So we'll divide by this. 1. So 400 divided by 1 is 400 nails. That's how many nails it takes. Okay, next problem. You built 4 cornhole sets with 2 sheets of plywood. How many sets can you make with 8 sheets of plywood? There's our setup. We gotta figure out what we know and what we want to know, what our question is. Now, what I want you to do is take your paper and make sure you got pencil sharpened, and I want you to pause the video and work this problem out and see how you do. And I'm gonna kick back, take my little nap. Y'all just let me know when you get done. Oh, okay, you're done? Alright, well, let's go over and see how you did. Got me a little nap, feel a little fresher. Alright, what do you know? What'd you put? 4 sets with 2 sheets of plywood. That's what we know. Alright, what was the question? How many sets with 8 sheets? How many sets? 8 sheets. Alright. 4 times 8. 32. Alright. Then we divide it by 2. What we get? 16 sets. Is that what you got? That's what I got. Alright. Let's go to another one. Took 2 bags of Sackcrete to set 3 posts. You're building a deck. How many bags of Sackcrete will it take to set 12 posts? That's how many you got on your deck. As I set up, got to figure out what we know and what we want to know. Question. Pause it again, pause the video, and work this problem out and let me know when you get back. Alright, let's check your answer. We got 2 bags for 3 posts. That's what we know. 2 bags to set 3 posts. What's our question? Is how many bags for 12 posts? This is just too easy. So 2 times 12 right here is 24. So now we divide it by 3. 2 times 12 divided by 3 equals 8 bags. Is that what you got? Good. Boy, we're having fun now. Alright, we got 2 more problems we're going to do. Then we'll finish this minute for math and end our section 1, and then we'll start in section 2. How many yards is 27 feet if 4 yards is 12 feet? Alright, set up what you know. What is the question? Alright, I want you to pause your video, resharpen your pencil, and let me know when you get done. We'll take up where we left off. Okay, let's see if you got it worked out right. How many yards is 27 feet if 4 yards is 12 feet? Alright, so what we know is 4 yards is 12 feet. That's what we know. But the question is, how many yards is 27 feet? Alright, so where are we going to put 27 feet? Not here, that's yards. So here we'll put how many yards, and here we'll put 27 feet. Is that what you did? Alright. Alright, so 4 times 27, 4 times 27 is 108. Then we divide by 12. And what do you get for your answer? 9 yards? Good job. Good job. Alright, one more. It's going to be fun. You need 25 pounds of barbecue for a family reunion. For every 10 pounds of Boston butts you cook, you yield 4.5 pounds. 4.5 pounds of barbecue. How many pounds of butts do you need to cook? Alright, so why do you cook 10 pounds and you yield 4.5 pounds? So by the time you get finished cooking, you're going to remove the bone, fat and moisture been cooked out. You got to clean it up, clean the fat out, and gristle, some skin. You don't want that in your barbecue. So if you cook 10 pounds, you're going to get 4.5 pounds. Alright, I'm trying to help you out a little bit. I know about as much about barbecue and cooking as I do carpentry. Alright, here's your setup. You got to find your question and what you know. Work this problem out and we'll be done with the math right now. Alright, let's see how we did on this problem. Alright, we needed 25 pounds of barbecue for the family reunion. For every 10 pounds of Boston butts you cook, we get 4.5 pounds of barbecue. So how many pounds of meat do we need to cook? Alright, what's the question? What do you get for a question? How many pounds of butts do I need to cook? Alright, so that's the beginning of our question. So let's put that there. How many pounds of butts do I need to cook to get what? 25 pounds of barbecue. Alright, so what do we know? We know that 10 pounds will yield 4.5. Alright, so we got our information put in the right spot. Then you work the problem. 10 times 25 equals 250. Alright, then we divide that by 4.5. And what do we get? What'd you get? I got 55.56 pounds of butts. That's a lot of meat. But that's how many you got to cook to get 25 pounds of barbecue. We'll talk more about this later. The reason I cover this is because I want you to get very familiar with this process, the way we're doing this with the cross multiplying. Because later on in this lesson, we're going to be doing a lot of converting units of measure, converting feet to inches, converting inches to feet, feet to yards, and just make it so much more simple. Alright, that's it for now. In a quick summary of our first section, we saw that what we measure determines the units that we use. You use cross multiplying to solve problems, and you'll realize how useful this will be as we progress in the lesson. And as we go forward, we'll focus on different ways to measure with inches, feet, yards, and fractions. And we'll see that in carpentry, we often need measurements that are in more than one dimension. We'll learn about that. And this wraps up our section 1 video, and in section 2 we'll learn about linear, area, and volume. See you on the next video.